see you, please feel free to fill out a blue welcome card, which you can put in the offering plate later in the service. It looks like this. There is a link to an online version in the chat. We'll put you on our email list so you can receive information about all that we do. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Our values and principles move us to remember that those of us in the Pioneer Valley live on the unceded homeland of the Pecumtuck, Nonotuck, and Western Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge our responsibility to confront the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history. And we affirm and celebrate the many legacies that inspire us. We have drawing materials and other ways to occupy hands on the tables in the back. Restrooms are downstairs and reach through one of the doors over here. We like to keep this door closed because of the cooling. You can either take the stairs or an elevator and return back through those doors. We're here to celebrate, to reflect, and to support one another. It is good to be together. And now we'll begin our service.
Oh, good morning. I'm Abe Gelbein. Been a member of UUNF for about a year now. Been a Unitarian about 60 plus years. Participants in this service are our beloved longtime member, Flora Majumder, Shari Majumder, Flora's daughter, visiting from California, Elaine Apthorpe, and Greg Hayes, our venerable Emirata music director on piano. Thank you, Greg, for the wonderful Beethoven you played as the prelude. Also, thank you to the worship committee for accepting my offer to bring this service to you, and Ginny Faringa, our service leader. The service was created by the late Reverend Joan Gelbein, my wife of 65 years. She retired from the ministry in June 2003 after serving as a settled minister at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Arlington, Virginia, for 14 and a half years. Joan was 87 when she died on May 27, 2023. She was a consummate poet, artist, and sermon writer. She left me the legacy of her works. The service we will share with you today is from that legacy and was presented to her UU congregation on July 29, 2001. The opening words I now read were by the Reverend Jacob Trapp. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in sunlight, or a grain of sand. To worship is to be silent, receptive, before a tree astir in the wind, or the passing shadow of a cloud. To worship is to work with dedication and skill. It is to pause from work and listen to a strain of music. To worship is to sing with the singing beauty of the earth. It is to listen through a storm to the still small voice within. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is kindred fire within our hearts. It moves through deeds of kindness and through acts of love. Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. It is an inarticulate silence yearning to speak. It is the window of the moment open to the sky of the eternal. Now we'll do the chalice lighting.
I invite everyone to rise in body or spirit for our chalice lighting. We'll remain standing for the first hymn. We light our chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love in celebration of the life we share together.
Amen.
And now it's time for us to greet one another. If you're on Zoom, you're invited to turn on your videos, wave, and say hello in the chat. It's helpful to switch to gallery view. Anyone online or here in person who is new or newish and would like to, please say hello and tell us where you're from.
Well, hello. Hello, Peggy. Hey, Tara. Hello, Mary Beth. Nice to see you, Melanie. Good morning, Lillian. Claire, I see your name. And Eva and Kim. Hello, Gail and John.
Jeannie?
Okay. It has been good to see everyone. Please remember online to turn off your videos. Our generosity makes everything we do possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offering support the Society's operating budget, and half are shared outside our walls. The organizations we are currently supported are listed in the order of meeting. Our morning offering will now be given and gratefully received.
I offer this meditation from Robert T. Weston. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here we have come, stardust and sunlight mingling through time and through space. Out of the stars we have come, up from time, out of the stars we have come. Time out of time, before time, in the vastness of space. Earth spun to orbit the sun, earth with the thunder of mountains newborn, the boiling of seas. Earth warmed by sun, lit by sunlight. This is our home, out of the stars we have come. Mystery, hidden in mystery, back through all time. Mystery rising from rocks in the storm and the sea. Out of the stars, rising from rocks and seas, kindled by sunlight on earth, arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Ponder with awe. Out of the sea to the land, out of the shallows came ferns, out of the seas to the land, up from darkness to light, rising to walk and to fly. Out of the sea trembled life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from sea, eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. Life from the sea, warmed by sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of the stars swing the earth, life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising out to see and to know. Out of your heart cry wonder, sing that we live. I now invite you to spend a little bit of time pondering these thoughts in silence. The sermon begins with a reading. The reading this morning is taken from Dan Wakefield's book, Returning. Many people find that nature is a conduit to the sacred. Dan Wakefield describes his childhood experiences in his spiritual autobiography. Though I still attended Sunday school sporadically, I began to feel more spiritual refreshment out of doors and in church. In the fields and woods, not far from my house, in the burning leaves of autumn and the running streams of spring, I felt close to the source and mystery of things. The perfume of wet clover, the rough hide feel of the bark of oaks, rushes of wind lifting curled red maple leaves off the hard autumn ground and swirling eddies. These and all the million sights, sounds, and smells of nature, from the sweet taste of foxtail grasses I chewed as I strolled, to the quick flash of a perch below the surface of a brook, all were revelations and messages of some creating force. Sometimes I felt frustration that I couldn't decipher the message, that I couldn't learn the meaning of it all, of life and earth, simply by trying to communicate with nature, staring, for instance, as hard as I could at a rock with layers of colors, or feeling its smooth, cool surface with my fingers and pressing it in my palm, as if I could squeeze out an answer. I knew there were secrets in the woods, and sometimes I felt I was very close to them, close to understanding, and there was a thrill in sensing such knowledge was there. If only I could look close enough, or be still enough, or attune enough. Every summer, I'm speaking for Joan now, every summer I get like this. I am deeply moved by the fullness of nature. The great flowering and leafing, buzzing and chirping, the bursting energy of heat and growth. It's a season like no other. Everything's in play, all dormancy gone, nothing held back, thick and rich, layers of incredible activity and complexity producing the show of shows. And every summer, I want to seek out, examine, touch, devour with my sight and soul all the delicious details. When the thought first came to me to make the delicious details of summer the theme of a sermon, I also began to think of it as Joan's Pastoral Symphony, which, as one thing leads to another, led me to think about Beethoven and his Symphony No. 6 in F major, the Pastoral. And I thank Greg for playing a piano rendition of one of the movements of that symphony. Beethoven, born in 1770, began to have symptoms of hearing loss in 1794. He was already known to be a musical genius, having studied with Haydn and Mozart and Salieri. By the end of the century, his hearing ability had weakened to such an extent that he began avoiding society. By 1801, he could no longer hear high-pitched vocal and instrumental sounds. He avoided speaking and did not respond when called to at any distance. He also avoided his condition, revealing his condition. An intense and emotional man, Beethoven began to experience severe periods of depression. In a letter written in June 1801, he told a friend, "Your Beethoven is leading a very unhappy life and is at variance with nature and his creator. Let me tell you that my most prized possession, my hearing, has greatly deteriorated. When you were still with me, I already felt the symptoms, but I said nothing about them. Now they have become very much worse. You realize what a sad life I must now lead." It was his strong desire to keep working that kept him going. 7 years later, deaf, he wrote his Pastoral Symphony. The name of the first movement is Awakening of Serene Impressions on Arriving in the Country. In this, my Pastoral Symphony, I too am interested in awakenings upon arriving in nature. It is not, however, serene impressions that draw me, but detailed clarity, the act and the art of seeing and hearing. Perhaps only in close observation of details can we glimpse the outlines or essence of the whole. God, it is said, is in the details. I wish to emulate Henry David Thoreau's habit of attention and the psychological and spiritual phenomenon of awareness resplendent in the writings of Anne Dillard. Thoreau's habit of attention is seen in his journal, a sharing of vital rhythms of nature. Every natural observation he made was a kind of a sighting, a note regarding a seasonal landmark or time mark. On this day, at this hour, at this location, I saw this plant or animal doing this or having this done to it. Thoreau seems to say in his most characteristic entries, it was a meticulous record of the emergencies and disappearances that mark the progression of the seasons. He was, it seems, looking for correspondences between the seasons and the mind. In 1857, he wrote, "These regular phenomena of the seasons get at last to be simply and plainly phenomena of phases of my life, the seasons and all their changes in me. Almost, I believe, the Concord would not rise and overflow its banks again were I not here. He can never look only himself or only at nature, but must always employ a kind of double vision, a way of seeing which acknowledges the subtle, vital unity of the self and the world. Thoreau lived the border life between wilderness and civilization and looked for awareness of harmonies and discords of shared and individual identity. He writes at one point, "My thought is part of the meaning of the world, and hence I use part of the world as a symbol to express my thought." His journal, his life in the woods, was a forum for determining the subtle boundaries of self and non-self, and for contributing to his feeling of being alive. He wrote, "We cannot write well or truly, but what we write with gusto. The body, the senses, must conspire with the mind. A writer is the scribe of all nature. He is the calm and the grass and the atmosphere writing. It is always essential that we love to do what we are doing, to do it with a heart." As he put it in Walden, he was determined to live deep and suck out all the marrows of life. Thoreau did not just look, he wanted to see. Annie Dillard is another of our American nature writers. She knows what it is to see, as Thoreau did, but she speaks of another kind of seeing as well.
Seeing is, of course, very much a matter of verbalization. Unless I call my attention to what passes before my eyes, I simply won't see it. It is, as Ruskin says, quote, "not merely unnoticed, but in the full, clear sense of the word, unseen." I have to say the words, describe what I'm seeing. If Tinker Mountain erupted, I'd be likely to notice. But if I want to notice the lesser cataclysms of valley life, I have to maintain in my head a running description of the present. When I see this way, I analyze and pry. I hurl over logs and roll away stones. I study the bank a square foot at a time, probing and tilting my head. But there is another kind of seeing that involves a letting go. When I see this way, I sway transfixed and emptied. The difference between the two ways of seeing is the difference between walking with and without a camera. When I walk with a camera, I walk from shot to shot, reading the light in a calibrated meter. When I walk without a camera, my own shutter opens and the moment's light prints on my own silver gut. When I see this second way, I am above all, an unscrupulous observer.
Dillard wrote Pilgrim at Tinker Creek in 1974, when she was in her late 20s, and she won a Pulitzer Prize for it in 1975. Oh, how I loved that book when I first read it. I still am a Dillard fan of the first order. She has written primary scripture as far as I'm concerned. The book is a form of meditation written with a headlong urgency about seeing.
I walk out, I see something, some event that would otherwise have been utterly missed and lost, or something sees me. Some enormous power brushes me with its clean wing, and I resound like a beaten bell. I am an explorer then, and I am also a stalker, or the instrument of the hunt itself. I am no scientist, but a poet and a walker with a background in theology and penchant for quirky facts.
In Pilgrim at Tinker Creek, she offers what Thoreau called a meteorological journal of the mind.
I live by a creek, Tinker Creek, in a valley in Virginia's Blue Ridge. The creeks, Tinker and Carvens, are an active mystery, fresh every minute. Theirs is the mystery of the continuous creation and all that providence implies, the uncertainty of vision, the horror of the fixed, the dissolution of the present, the intricacy of beauty, the pressure of fecundity, the elusiveness of the free, and the flawed nature of perfection.
What stirs in us stirs in the world. Venturing forth to bring the two together is, in the felicitous phrasing of Joseph Campbell, the soul's high adventure. It is the movement from the remote pond of self-reflection that Narcissus found so enchanting to the re-enchantment of the world. Seeing in a sacred manner, out of the corner of our third eye, so to speak, allows us to see what is in the numinous shadows of many archaic gateways, waterfalls, groves, mesas, canyons, springs, grottos, caves, glaciers, sites revealed as sacred through generations of pilgrimages, vision quests, rituals, and monument building. Chaco Canyon, Lascaux, Delphi, Machu Picchu, Glastonbury, Palenque, Chartres, and, dare I say, Pilgrim Creek.
We don't know what's going on here. Our life is a faint tracing on the surface of a mystery, like the idle, carved tunnels of leaf miners on the face of a leaf. We must somehow take a wider view, look at the whole landscape, really see it, and describe what's going on here. Then we can at last weight the right question into the swaddling band of darkness, or if it comes to that, choir the proper phrase.
From the white main rivers of Yosemite Valley to the flying buttresses of the Chartres Cathedral, inspired and engineered monuments celebrate the whirling dervish energies of the earth and sanctify the powers that can vitalize our spiritual life if we choose to notice them as sacred. All living things are interwoven with each other, said Marcus Aurelius. The tie is sacred, and nothing or next to nothing is alien to anything else. We can go to places where we feel compelled to ask what the evolving story is. There are special sacred places, but there are also any places in which you can sense the special and take the time to see the revelation abundantly available to us all. In this way, we will, with Thoreau and Dillard, find a way, as Thoreau said, to read not the times, but the eternities, and rest in the peace of the world. The poet Lew Welch tells us to step out onto the planet, draw a circle 100 feet round. Inside the circle are 300 things nobody understands and maybe nobody's ever seen. How many can you find? Annie Dillard drew a smaller circle, a drop of water, pond water, under her microscope. Here is part of one of my favorite passages in Pilgrim at Tinker Creek.
A cup of duck pond water looks like a seething broth. If I carry the cup home and let the sludge settle, the animalcules sort themselves out. I harvest them with a pipette and examine them under a microscope. There they loom and disappear as I fiddle with the focus. I run the eyepiece around till I'm seeing the drop magnified 300 times. and I squint at the little rotifer called monostyla. It zooms around excitedly, crashing into strands of Spirogera alga or zipping around the frayed edge of the clump of debris. The creature is flattened oval. At its head is a single fringe of whirling cilia, and at its tail, a single long spike so that it is shaped roughly like a horseshoe crab. But it is so incredibly small, as multi-celled animals go, that it is translucent, even transparent. I don't really look forward to these microscope forays. I have almost been knocked off my kitchen chair on several occasions when, as I was following with strained eyes the tiny career of a monostyla rotifer, an enormous red roundworm whipped into the scene, blocking everything, and writhing in huge, flapping convulsions that seemed to sweep my face and fill the kitchen. I do it as a moral exercise. The microscope at my forehead is a kind of phylactery, a constant reminder of the facts of creation that I would just as soon forget. But in the puddle or pond, in the city reservoir, ditch, or Atlantic Ocean, the rotifers still spin and munch. The Daphnia still filter and are filtered, and the copepods still swarm, hanging with clusters of eggs. These are real creatures with real organs, leading real lives, one by one. I can't pretend they're not there. I was created from a clot and set in proud, free motion. So were they. If I did not know about the rotifers and paramecia and all the bloom of plankton clogging the dying pond, fine. But since I've seen it, I must somehow deal with it, take it into account. Never lose a holy curiosity, Einstein said. And so I lift my microscope down from the shelf, spread a drop of duck pond on the glass slide, and look spring in the eye.
There will we sense all creation trembling, where the universe becomes our companion. It is there where we see our soul. First, Dillard guided the reader through the microscope that is her eyes, enlarging whatever flies, swims, or crawls to monstrous proportions. Then she aims that microscope, by now a telescope, at the heavens. She wants to see into the spirit of creation itself, to know the mystery.
The landscape reveals one certainty, that the extravagant gesture is the very stuff of creation, flinging intricacies and colossi down eons of emptiness. Even on the perfectly ordinary and clearly visible level, creation carries on with an intricacy unfathomable and apparently uncalled for. The lone ping into being of the first hydrogen atom ex nihilo was so unthinkably violently radical that surely it ought to have been enough, more than enough. But look what happens. You open the door and all heaven and hell breaks loose. Rumi, the poet, reminds
us, cajoles us, as I would do, not to turn away from the intricacies and the extravagance, not to turn away from looking nature and truth in the eye. The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Summer. I go down to the creek again. Yeah.
Summer, I go down to the creek again and lead a creek life. I watch and stalk. Down here, the heat is on. Even a bird skin shirt would be too much. In the cool of the evening, I take to the bridges over the creek. I am prying into secrets again and taking my chances. I might see anything happen. I might see nothing but light on the water. I walk home exhilarated or becalmed, but always changed and alive. It scatters and gathers, Heraclitus said. It comes and goes, and I want to be in the way of its passage and cooled by its invisible breath. In summer, I stalk. I have to seek things out.
That is my wish for you, to stalk, to see things out, to thrive on the delicious details of summer. As Beethoven heard with his inner ear, so may it be for you, and so may you see beyond the surface of things with your third eye. Engage the world, for it is part of you, and you a part of it. Practice an art of life crafted with sacred attention to the persistent images of what Thomas Berry calls the grand liturgy of the universe. May all things move and be moved in you, and know and be known to you. May all creation dance for joy within you. Joan also wrote a benediction at the end of her sermons. This one is by Lou Welsh. Religion is revelation. All the wonders of all the planets striking all our only mind. God the mysteries, constantly reveal them. Amen, shalom, and blessed be. And now for our postlude.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think we're singing it in the wrong key.
Let's start again.
Let's rewind that. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonder so pretty in the sky are also the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful